Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive deep with me again.
Always ready. Let's go.
Awesome. So, today we're tackling something that I think is super relevant to pretty much everyone, no matter where you are in your financial journey.
Yeah, I think this one hits home for a lot of people.
We're looking at this text called Rule Your Money, or Money Will Rule You.
Ooh, that title's a bit provocative, isn't it?
It is. It really grabs your attention, right?
Hmm.
And it gets you thinking because it frames money in a way that I think a lot of us don't always consider.
Yeah, it's not just about how much you have or how much you make.
Exactly. This whole idea of money is something that can either be this tool you use, to achieve your goals and live the life you want, or can be this force that kind of takes over and dictates, well, a lot of your life, really.
And that's what this text really dives into, right? That dichotomy. Are you in the driver's seat or are you being taken for a ride?
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Like, what does it actually mean to rule your money,
Mm.
and what happens if you don't?
Yeah, and I think the text does a really good job of outlining the stakes too. It's not just about feeling a little bit out of control, it's about the real consequences that can come from neglecting your finances.
Absolutely. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I know this stuff, I'm good. But just knowing isn't enough, is it?
Right. It's like having a gym membership but never actually going. It doesn't really get you the results you want.
Perfect analogy. So let's break down some of the key ideas from Rule Your Money or Money Will Rule You, and really try to understand what it takes to move from that feeling of being controlled by your finances to actually being in control of them.
Sounds good to me. Where should we start?
Well, I think the first thing we have to address is that central idea, that core message of the text, right? That you're either the ruler of your money or you are being ruled by it.
It's powerful imagery, right? I mean, you can almost visualize it. On one hand, you have this image of someone confidently managing their finances, making informed decisions, feeling secure and empowered.
Yeah, they're calling the shots.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, you have this picture of someone who's constantly stressed about money, living paycheck to paycheck, feeling trapped by debt, like they're being dragged along by their finances.
Almost like money's this big, shadowy figure looming over them.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point because it highlights the psychological impact that our relationship with money can have. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how those numbers make us feel. If you're constantly feeling anxious and overwhelmed about your finances, that's going to spill over into other areas of your life.
Oh, absolutely. It can affect your relationships, your work, even your health. It's a huge burden to carry.
Exactly. So recognizing that power dynamic, understanding that you have a choice in the matter, that's the first step towards taking control.
Okay, so we've established that we want to be the ones ruling our money. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, the text dives into this idea that rule has a double meaning when it comes to money, which I think is really insightful.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's not just about following the rules, it's about the act of ruling itself. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Sure. So, on one hand, you have the actual tangible rules of money. Think about things like tax laws, interest rates, investment regulations. These are the kind of set in stone rules that we all have to play by. And it's important to understand them, right? Because if you don't know the rules of the game, you're probably going to lose.
Right, that makes sense. Don't want to get caught off sides.
Exactly. But then there's this other layer to it, which is the act of ruling itself. It's about making conscious, informed decisions about how you use your money. It's about setting goals, creating a budget, making sure your spending aligns with your values.
So it's like knowing the rules is one thing, but it's that active decision making that's what really puts you in control.
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of people stumble because it's not always easy, right? It takes discipline, it takes effort, it takes sometimes saying no to things you want in the short term so you can achieve bigger goals in the long term.
It's like that classic marshmallow experiment, right? The kids who could delay gratification ended up with better outcomes in the long run.
Exactly. And I think that's a really helpful way to think about it because it's not about depriving yourself. It's about understanding that the choices you make today have consequences tomorrow. And if you want to be in control of your financial future, you have to be willing to make those tough choices sometimes.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of understanding both the written rules and the act of ruling itself. But the text also makes a point of saying that knowledge alone isn't enough. Why is that?
Because knowing what you should do and actually doing it are two very different things.
True.
We all know we should eat healthy and exercise, but how many of us actually do it consistently? It's the same with money. You can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, take all the financial literacy courses, but if you don't actually put that knowledge into action, it's not going to make a difference in your life.
So what are some of the things that hold people back from taking action, even when they know they should?
Well, there are a lot of factors at play. Some people are just naturally more prone to procrastination, right? They put things off until the last minute and then they feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start. Others might be afraid of making mistakes, so they avoid dealing with their finances altogether. And then there are those who just feel like they don't have enough time or energy to devote to it? Life gets busy and it's easy to let things slide.
Yeah, I totally get that. It can feel like a daunting task, especially if you're starting from scratch. And the text doesn't sugarcoat the consequences of inaction, does it?
No, it definitely doesn't. It lays out pretty clearly what can happen if you let your finances run wild.
Which is?
Well, for starters, you're much more likely to overspend and accumulate debt. And when you're in debt, it's like this constant weight dragging you down. You're constantly playing catch up, trying to make ends meet, and it can be incredibly stressful.
And it can snowball, can it? Like the more debt you have, the harder it is to get out of it.
Exactly. And the longer you wait to address the problem, the worse it gets. It's like ignoring a small leak in your roof. Eventually, it's going to turn into a major problem. The text also talks about how neglecting your finances can lead to increased financial difficulties later in life. You might not be able to retire comfortably, you might struggle to pay for your kids' education, or you might even end up having to rely on family or government assistance.
It's pretty stark warning. And it underscores just how important it is to be proactive about managing your money.
Yeah, it's not something you can just ignore and hope it goes away. You have to take control and make it a priority.
Okay, so we've talked about the consequences of letting our finances control us. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the solutions. The text introduces this concept of a legal and logical framework for money. What exactly does that mean?
Right, so the legal framework, as we touched on earlier, refers to all the laws and regulations that govern money, things like tax codes, interest rates, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that makes your eyes glaze over.
Exactly. But it's important stuff, and it's the foundation of the financial system. These are the hard and fast rules that we all have to follow, whether we like it or not.
Okay, got it. So what about the logical framework? What does that entail?
So the logical framework is all about understanding the principles that make money tick. It's about recognizing the inherent logic behind things like compound interest, risk and reward, the time value of money, all those concepts that might sound a bit abstract but are actually incredibly powerful once you grasp them.
So one is like knowing the official rules of the game, and the other is understanding the strategy behind it. Is that a good way to put it?
Exactly. And the text argues that both of these frameworks are crucial for successfully ruling your money. You need to know the rules of the game, but you also need to understand the strategy behind winning.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how do you actually go about mastering both of these frameworks? It sounds a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
It doesn't have to be. The first step, as we said before, is awareness. Take some time to assess your current financial situation, your knowledge, your habits. Where are you strong and where do you need to improve? Once you have a clear picture of where you stand, you can start to identify the gaps in your knowledge and seek out resources to fill them.
So for the legal framework, that might involve reading up on tax laws, understanding your credit score, things like that.
Exactly. And for the logical framework, it might involve learning about different investment strategies, understanding how to build a diversified portfolio, or even just learning how to create a budget that actually works for you.
Okay, that's helpful. So once you've got a handle on both the legal and logical frameworks, what's the next step?
Action. It's time to put that knowledge into practice. Start setting financial goals, create a plan to achieve them, and then track your progress along the way.
And that's where the ruling part comes in, right? It's about actively making those choices and sticking to your plan.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. You're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to have setbacks, but that's okay. The important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving forward.
Thinking about all this, it really strikes me that this whole concept of ruling your money is about so much more than just being good with numbers. It's about taking control of your life, creating a sense of security and freedom, and ultimately being able to pursue the things that truly matter to you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about empowerment. It's about knowing you have the tools and the knowledge to create the life you want.
Exactly. And I think that's a really inspiring message. So to wrap things up, let me ask you this. For someone who's listening right now, feeling maybe a little overwhelmed or unsure where to start, what's one small step they can take today to start ruling their money more effectively?
It could be something as simple as sitting down and tracking their spending for a week, just getting a clear picture of where their money's actually going. That can be really eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great starting point. Or maybe setting a small financial goal, even if it's just saving a few extra dollars each week. The important thing is to take that first step and start building momentum.
Absolutely. And remember, every small step you take towards financial control is a step towards a more secure and fulfilling future. You have the power to rule your money. Don't let it rule you.
Awesome. So on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. What's one thing you learned today that you can apply to your own financial life? Think about it, write it down, and take action. Until next time.
See you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.